You imported a module, but you never asked it to run yet. So why are its side effects already happening? Picture your application starting up and making its way through the code. It encounters an ordinary import. As a developer, you might read that line as a declaration. This module is available here. But the observable part of the story can start earlier than you expect. The imported code can be evaluated, and its side effects can happen before your application ever reaches the point where that code is actually needed. That's the import that ran too soon, and nothing necessarily broke. The problem is that the timing of execution was decided automatically. A module went from being referenced to actively affecting your application's behavior simply because the import was encountered. The real question isn't whether that module should ever run. The question is, why does it have to run now? To make sense of the problem, we need to separate two ideas that are easy to blend together: identifying a module and evaluating it. Module evaluation is the moment when the imported code actually executes. And if that code has side effects, evaluation is also the moment when those effects can become part of the application's behavior. So timing isn't just some implementation detail hiding behind the import syntax. It's part of the program's execution timeline. Move evaluation earlier, and an effect can occur before it's needed. Move evaluation later, and the application stays untouched by that module until a more deliberate point in the timeline. That's why this issue is really about control. An ordinary import can bundle access and evaluation into what feels like one immediate event. The developer names a dependency, and the runtime behavior connected to that dependency may begin right away. Once you notice that hidden timing decision, the opportunity becomes much easier to see. Importing a module and evaluating its code don't always need to feel like the same decision. This brings us to the key capability. TypeScript 5.9 introduces support for deferred module evaluation through import defer. And the important word here is deferred. The module is still part of the program. Its evaluation hasn't been removed or avoided. What changes is the point when its imported code and side effects execute. That timing becomes something developers can control, which changes the relationship between an import and the application's execution timeline. With an ordinary import, evaluation can happen before the developer needs the imported code. With import defer, that evaluation can be postponed. The module doesn't have to start affecting the application just because the import was encountered. It's a focused change, but the consequence matters. TypeScript 5.9 isn't simply giving the import statement a different look. It's exposing control over when module evaluation happens. And because evaluation determines when imported code and side effects execute, controlling evaluation means controlling a real, observable part of application behavior. Here's the practical mental model to keep in mind. Import now, evaluate later. Think about the application timeline as having two distinct milestones. The first milestone establishes access to the module. The second milestone triggers evaluation, which allows the imported code and any side effects it has to execute. With immediate evaluation, those two milestones are effectively pushed together. The program encounters the import, and the evaluation event follows without waiting for the point when the code is actually needed. Deferred module evaluation pulls those milestones apart. The import can be present without forcing the module's code to execute immediately. Evaluation waits until the imported code is actually needed. That distinction is the core of import defer. It doesn't erase evaluation, and it doesn't promise that side effects will somehow disappear. What it changes is when evaluation happens. A useful way to reason about this feature is to ask two questions instead of one. Which module does this code need access to? And at what point should that module begin executing? TypeScript 5.9 makes that second question explicit. Of course, more control also creates a more deliberate reasoning task. Once evaluation can be deferred, developers have to think carefully about the point when the imported code truly becomes necessary. With automatic evaluation, the timeline is selected for you. The import is encountered, the module is evaluated, and any related side effects can occur. Deferred evaluation replaces that automatic sequence with a decision. Now, the developer controls when execution crosses that boundary, but that doesn't mean every import should be deferred. The verified capability is more specific than that. Developers can control evaluation timing. The responsibility is deciding where that control makes the application's behavior clearer. Start by asking what the module does when it's evaluated. Then ask whether those effects are needed immediately. These are questions about timing, not preferences about formatting. The goal isn't to delay code just because delay is now available. The goal is to make the chosen evaluation point line up with what the application actually needs. So why should you care about this beyond the novelty of some new syntax? Because sometimes timing is part of the feature itself. Deferred evaluation is especially relevant when imported code has side effects, or when that code simply doesn't need to execute immediately. In either case, automatic evaluation can cause something to happen before the application has any reason for it to happen. The import becomes an early trigger, even though the useful work doesn't arrive until later in the timeline. Import defer gives developers a way to express a different intention, make the module available, but postpone its evaluation until the code is needed. The benefit described by the verified finding is explicit control over runtime behavior. It isn't a claim that every application will become faster. It isn't a promise that every side effect will become harmless. And it doesn't mean every import should be changed. The real value is precision. Developers get a way to align module evaluation with actual demand. When the moment of execution matters, choosing that moment isn't incidental. It becomes part of how you design the program's behavior. Now, let's return to the mystery we started with. You imported a module, but its side effects showed up before you intended to use it. The thing that ran too soon was module evaluation. Getting access to the module and evaluating its code had effectively been treated as one immediate event. TypeScript 5.9 changes that relationship with import defer. The imported code no longer has to execute just because the import was encountered. Its evaluation can be postponed until the imported code is actually needed. That's the shift worth remembering. Automatic evaluation becomes intentional evaluation. The module still exists. Its code can still execute. Its side effects can still happen. But the timing of those events no longer has to be an automatic consequence of encountering the import. Import defer makes the timeline something developers can reason about and control. Instead of asking only what code an application imports, you can also ask when that imported code should begin participating in the application's behavior. That's how TypeScript 5.9 lets you take back control. Your next step is to look at your own code base through this timing lens. Find imports whose code or side effects execute before they're actually needed. For each one, identify when evaluation currently happens, and then compare that point with the moment when the imported code becomes necessary. The question isn't simply, can this be deferred? A more useful question is, would deferred evaluation make control over this behavior clearer? If the module has side effects, pay close attention to whether those effects happen earlier than the surrounding application logic requires. And if the imported code isn't needed immediately, consider whether separating access from evaluation would express that reality more clearly. You're mapping imports to behavior and looking for places where automatic evaluation hides the program's intent. Import defer gives you a control point. Your job is to decide where using that control would make the program's timeline more deliberate. If this deep dive helped you start seeing imports as part of the execution timeline, subscribe to Neural Stack, like the video, and share in the comments where evaluation timing matters in your code.